Happiness is so sought after that a course called Psychology and the Good Life recently became the most popular class ever taught at Yale, with about a quarter of its student population enrolled, and a final self-improvement project titled, Hack Yourself. As humans, we search for a life experience that's richer, filled with more positive emotions than negative ones. When she asked me to lead today's discussion, Jessica pointed me toward a book by Gretchen Rubin entitled Happier at Home. Her first book, called The Happiness Project, follows Rubin on a year-long quest for greater happiness. This book, which is her second, builds on her findings but focuses on the place that can affect our happiness the most, our home. So what I'd like to do this morning is to share some suggestions from Happier at Home, sprinkle in a little bit of my own personal experience, and get us thinking about small changes we can make to bring more joy into our homes, our families, and our own often neglected souls. Think about your home. Picture clearly a room or a corner in your home that makes you smile. I really want you to think about this. Do you have it? Someplace in your home that makes you happy. For some, it may be an area that is calm and uncluttered, free from the reminders of the stresses in our lives. For others, it may be a place where you gather with your family, not calm necessarily, but filled with happy noise and memories. For me, the first place to come to mind is my refrigerator door. We moved a few months ago, and I've had to start my refrigerator collection all over again. But this is where I put the colorful drawings my children make and pin up photos of happy moments. Since we spend a lot of time in the kitchen, I get to look at these treasures all the time. And each time I'm reminded of how lucky I am to have these creative, loving little people in my life. And for those of you who don't know me, I have 3 daughters. They are 3, 5, and 8, and they're crazy. Now zoom out from that happy place. I would bet that not every corner of your home makes you smile. There's the sink full of dishes, the teeming dresser drawers that my children don't even bother to close. There's the dusty shades, the dog hair that clusters around the edges of the room. There are abandoned shoes and socks everywhere. The other day I found 8 socks in my living room. There's the light that just won't turn on for some reason. And I know I have to call an electrician, but that's just one more thing to do. There's that one room we don't really use, where we just toss everything. We keep the door shut, because when the door is shut, it no longer exists. I don't know if you knew that. I don't know if this sounds familiar to you, but each day I wake up with a list in my head of all that needs to be done. This list has approximately 387 items on it. And the weird thing about it is it never gets any shorter. For the first few hours of the day, I feel pretty good about myself. I cross off pack lunches and get the kids to school. Most days I check off workout and spend 20 minutes on Instagram, which I'm able to do at the same time because I'm really good at multitasking. Then I get home and I have to move shower up the list, even though that dog hair is really piling up and the whole house could stand to be vacuumed. And then midway through the day, I start to get kind of panicky because there are still 387 things on the list, and school ends in a couple of hours. And I just really suck at life. I can't do anything. And now I'm gonna have to take the kids grocery shopping with me. Or maybe that doesn't sound familiar because unlike me, you have your kiddos at your side all day long. And so every chore you do gets performed during nap time, or in between feedings, or when you can get your darling child to stare at the TV long enough for you to take a shower. There are lots of things that stand in the way of our homes being the sanctuary we want them to be. But it's a new year, and I believe that whatever our current situation, we can be happier than we are now. I'd like to share with you a passage from the first pages of Happier at Home. She writes, "Home is where I walk through the door without ringing the bell, where I take a handful of coins from the change bowl without asking, where I eat a tuna fish sandwich without misgivings about the ingredients, where I rifle through the mail. At the heart of this home is my family. Where my family is home. And then skipping ahead a little bit, behind our unremarkable front door waits the little world of our own making, a place of safety, exploration, comfort, and love. The dry scent of the coat closet, the faint clankings from the service elevator, the sight of our library books lined up by the front door, the flavor of the toothpaste we all share. This is my foundation. If home is my foundation, which it is, then what I don't want is for home to be a place where I am constantly overwhelmed and where the only thing I can focus on is the list that never ends. What do I want? I've come up with 3 goals that I think encompass what it means to feel at home in our own homes. They are, number 1, to have a home filled with belongings that are meaningful and not meaningless. 2, to create a physical environment that reflects my personality and values. And number 3, to promote an atmosphere of warmth and loving acceptance for all family members. We'll be working on goals number 1 and 2 all month long in our Facebook group, led by the lovely Jennifer Lake. But I've divided those 2 goals up because I think that issues of cleanliness and clutter are different than the issue of personalizing your space in a way that will make you happy. And we kind of need to get through goal number 1, which is the cleanliness and clutter, in order to accomplish goal number 2, which is to kind of have our own personal stamp on our space. It's important to keep in mind that happiness is not having less, happiness is not having more, happiness is wanting what I have. And that's a direct quote, that's not me. Some people are adamant about the benefits of a minimalist lifestyle. And that's great, whatever works. Personally, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to be a minimalist with 3 children, although I've been tempted. At my old house, we used a spare bedroom down the hall from the kitchen as a playroom. And the crap that littered that hallway in between made me crazy. It was like my children thought that if they didn't leave a trail of breadcrumbs, like tiny game pieces and figurines, that they would never find their way back to the playroom. And I can laugh about it now, but there were days when I just wanted to go all Mama Bear from Berenstain Bears in the messy room and just put everything in a trash bag. It's not just the kids' stuff, though. Stuff in general seems to be a common source of stress for moms especially. As Rubin says in her book, in many cases, my possessions blocked my view and weighed me down. Right? Meaningless possessions. The feeling of having something and not knowing what to do with it, that can weigh us down. So how do we root out what is meaningless? One thing we can do is walk into our closets and say, do I wear this? Not will I wear this, because we don't save things for imaginary future occasions. The clothes you use regularly are the ones that are meaningful to you. However, if you're like me, this season of motherhood may have caused a bit of fluctuation in the size of certain body parts. So in that case, it might make sense to set aside some skinny clothes for a few months down the road, but only if looking at them doesn't make you feel bad, and only if wearing them again seems like an attainable goal for you. Otherwise, just ditch them and have some fun shopping for clothes that make you feel like the sexy mama you are. If you can, go shelf by shelf and drawer by drawer. Do this even if it takes a month or more. For me, when I moved, this was a great opportunity to sort through the contents of my home and purge anything that was unnecessary or unloved. As you go, ask yourself the same question. Ask yourself, what is this for? Beloved books are for reading, so keep them. Favorite pictures are for looking at. If they're not framed, gather them into an album or put them in a memory box. Whatever doesn't have a purpose, though, does not have a place in your home. Sometimes we hold on to unneeded items because we feel guilty about disposing of them. If you hold on to something because you're going to fix it, and 6 months later you haven't fixed it, then it's not important to you, and you need to let it go. And if it makes you feel better to know that your clothes or toys or whatever it is will get a new life beyond your home, consider bringing them to Mob's Free Cycle, which is right back there, or donate to a thrift shop that directly benefits local organizations like Habitat for Humanity or the Haven of Rest. Often these organizations offer free furniture pickup, which is a plus. On the flip side, meaning full possessions, photographs, often used kitchen gadgets. I love my blender. Beautiful artwork, the tools or equipment we need for our favorite activities. These can lift our spirits and make us feel happy and at home. So a blender or a pair of tennis shoes or a blanket, these can bring us joy, and there's nothing wrong with objects bringing us joy. We don't need to feel bad about that. So the things in our home can impact happiness, as can the way we keep and organize those things. This is one of my favorite quotes from Happier at Home. Outer order contributes to inner calm. That is true. Why is this true? Perhaps it's the tangible sense of control, or the relief from visual noise, or the release from guilt. In the span of a happy life, having a messy desk or an overflowing closet is clearly trivial. And yet creating order gives a disproportionate boost of energy and cheer. Who here likes to create order? Raise your hand if you just, it's so fun, right? Like when you can get that little neat and tidy corner in your crazy home, it just feels so good. I'm one of those people who can't sit down to a task until the area around me is tidy, which is part of the reason it takes me forever to do things. Every time I can create a tiny area of order in the midst of the chaos of motherhood, it's like I'm channeling the divine. It's not an easy task, but one suggestion the author makes is to keep surfaces, like dressers and counters, clear of clutter. That's why drawers are not transparent. When it comes to keeping things tidy, though, I just want to remind you that real life is a real thing. For every tidy corner, there's probably going to be several that are just not, unless you want to spend half of every day cleaning. The time when home starts to feel like a place of oppression rather than a place of comfort is when you hold yourself to unrealistic standards. I feel like that's worth saying one more time. The time when home starts to feel like a place of oppression rather than a place of comfort is when you hold yourself to unrealistic standards. I am Jenny. I am not Danya. Okay, I am not Stephanie. I am not a lifestyle influencer on Instagram. I am not a type A personality. I'm a different me than any of you. I don't change my mantle decorations to match the seasons. I don't craft. I've never been shopping at IKEA. I don't own like any cute hats. Some of you do, I'm sure, own cute hats. I don't. But I love bright pops of color, and I love to shop at art fairs, and I love to display gifts that people give me because they make me think fondly of the giver. My home reflects my values, as it should. I think that some of the unhappiness that creeps up on us in our homes comes from a sense that our house would look so much nicer if only we did things the way someone else does them. And that's just a losing battle. Happiness in my home has to begin with me. If I feel insufficient or not enough, then I will never be at peace within the walls of my home. So really take some time to consider your values, your aesthetic, the way you use your time and money. Is the appearance of your home making you unhappy because it doesn't look like the house you saw on HGTV? Or is it making you unhappy because you're trying to make it look like that house? And in the end, that's really just not who you are. Only you know what makes you happy, and a happy you is more likely to contribute to a happy environment for your family. Which leads us to goal number 3, to promote an atmosphere of warmth and loving acceptance for all family members. In order to truly feel at home in your home, there needs to be a certain level of harmony amongst the people coexisting there. And usually, like it or not, we're the ones who have to step up and set that tone. There were several suggestions in Happier at Home that I really liked. and that have stuck with me as ways to strengthen our relationships with our family members. The first has to do with our management of time. For me, there is nothing more likely to trigger a total mom meltdown than being in a time crunch when my children are not cooperating. That was this morning. Mornings in general are bad. Sunday mornings are horrible. By the time we get to church, I'm like, Jesus, take these children from me. When I feel short on time, my temper gets short too. Here's what Gretchen Rubin, the author of Happier at Home, has to say about time. People who feel in control of their lives, which is powerfully bolstered by feeling in control of time, are more likely to feel happy. She also says this: when I felt hurried and distracted, I acted worse. Also, I suffered from the permanent delusion that once I got through the next 3 or 4 months, things would slow down. But things never slowed down. As moms, we are painfully aware of how little control we have over our time. Or if I rephrase that, how little time we have to do what we want to do. And this can lead to feelings of unhappiness and resentment. We get so focused on the list that never ends that we start to view our own children and our spouses as distractions, taking us away from all the boxes we need to check off. That's not okay. The truth is, we make time for the things we value. If I can spend 20 minutes on Instagram, and that's a drastic understatement. And who are we kidding? I said I'm probably spending close to an hour. My screen time little thing will tell me differently. Then I can spend 20 minutes of uninterrupted, device-free time playing with or listening to my children. When we add our children and significant others to the list that never ends, we're investing in the happiness of our home, and everyone wins. Admittedly, I've really struggled in the past with putting the list aside and giving my children and my husband my undivided attention. A lot of times I feel like a hamster on a wheel, always moving but somehow never getting anywhere. So when it comes to time management, working on efficiency is really key for me. This means less mindless time on my device. It means prioritizing sleep and exercise so that my brain isn't quite as sluggish. And it means timing myself to power through unpleasant projects I've been putting off. Devote 15 minutes a day, every day, Rubin recommends, to something you don't want to do but that has to be done. It has to be done every day, though, to make it a habit, and for those 15 minutes to add up to something that makes you feel accomplished. I think it's a great idea. It's a way to stop procrastinating when it comes to dealing with unpleasant tasks and to feel better about yourself or chipping away at something you'd formerly neglected. And it also creates that space in our schedules for quality family time because it's a focused 15 minutes instead of an unfocused 1 or 2 hours. Okay, so we're going to promote an atmosphere of warmth and loving acceptance for all family members, first by creating time for them. Secondly, we're going to create this atmosphere by extending to our children and partners the grace that our Lord Jesus shows us every day of our lives. In this book, the author refers to this as digging deep. When you dig deep, you don't do the thing you most want to do. When your 3-year-old is sitting soaking wet and naked on your bathroom floor, screaming that she wants her sister's bath towel, and insisting that the towel with her name monogrammed on it is not hers, and that she wants the one with all the little mermaids on it. Instead, you keep your voice calm and steady, and you administer a spanking unemotionally, and only after the requisite warning has been given. This just happened like 2 days ago. And then when she sobs, "I'm so sorry, Mommy," she's the only one of my children who would ever dream of apologizing to me for bad behavior. You can give her a hug and honestly reassure her that you're not mad. And you can move on without hurting her or causing her any shame. And also without feeling that shame yourself or when you behave badly in a situation like that. Digging deep is hard. And it's one of the many reasons we need Jesus in our lives. Because it often takes a strength that we do not have when all we do all day long is give and give and give. It can be even harder with our spouse or partner, if we have one. The thing about digging deep, though, is that unlike yelling or eye-rolling or snide comments, we're never going to wish we could take it back. The last way we're going to promote an atmosphere of warmth and loving acceptance for all family members is by acknowledging their coming and going with what Reuben calls warm greetings and farewells. My husband comes home after work and it's just like, hey, welcome to the zoo. My hands are full with making dinner and dealing with children. And while I make sure to say excitedly to the kids, look, Daddy's home, I'm like, go that way. I don't generally stop what I'm doing, but I need to. He needs to feel welcomed when he walks into his home. I want to feel welcomed when I walk into my home. So try talking to your family about warm greetings and farewells. And if you don't already, see if you can make that a habit in your household. Friends, I hope I've given you not only words of advice, but words of encouragement as well. The beautiful thing about MOPS is that we're all doing this hard and awesome stage of life together. Not one of us has it figured out, but we can lift each other up and we can hold each other accountable. It's all about the effort here, not necessarily the end result. I wish for each and every one of you to be happy in your home. And if that's not doable for you right now, I wish for you to, at the very least, be happier. For at this very moment, as we sit here in this meeting room, God is at work in you, opening your eyes to the light and joy that is already in your lives. As Hebrews chapter 3, verse 4 reads, "For every house is built by someone, but God is the builder of everything." Thank you.